This episode of the Flush Podcast is brought to you by onX, the #1 GPS hunting map app. onX, know where you stand. Today I'm talking with longtime friends and avid pheasant hunters, Jeff Striker and Rob Beyer. Jeff and Rob have parlayed their passion for chasing pheasants into land ownership. Jeff and Rob share how they got started in owning hunting land, who they worked with, and tips for success, as well as what 20 years of hunting land ownership has taught them. Welcome to another episode of the Flush Podcast. And if you're a regular listener to our podcasts, I know what you're thinking. These are not the dulcet tones of Travis Frank. Well, you're right. I'm Scott Franson, and I will be attempting to fill Travis's rather large shoes today as he searches for Minnesota state fish on Lake of the Woods. And if you follow him on Facebook, you will see that he caught the largest northern pike I've ever seen. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. Travis will be back next week, hopefully with a few walleye fillets for me. Brandon Morton is our producer, and he is here today and will try and keep me from going off the rails. Brandon, how are we doing today?
Doing well.
Are you sure you're up for this?
I think so.
You going to hold my hand through this whole thing?
We'll try.
Thank you, Brandon. Well, I'm not going to lie. Filling in for Travis is not an easy homework assignment. But they say when you're nervous about something, just imagine yourself doing something that you love to help yourself relax. Well, for today's show, that's not really that hard because I have all sorts of fond memories with the two guys in front of me, my guests today. Most we can even talk about on the podcast. Some we can't. Today I'm joined by Jeff Striker and Rob Beyer, two of the four boys from Eden Prairie. If you missed the initial airing of this show on the Outdoor Channel, it's going to be posted to our Flush YouTube channel on March 2nd. You can watch for it then. Jeff, Rob, how are we doing today?
Doing good. Doing good.
I said we're actually together, which is really, really nice. And we look like we're just about to fly an airplane or something with these headsets on. So Jeff and Rob and I have known each other probably for more years than any of us would like to admit. Guys, who would have thunk that when we were busy sowing our oats at Eden Prairie High School, that fast forward, you could ever imagine us sitting in front of microphones talking hunting as semi-respectable adults. And you notice how I use semi.
Keyword.
Appropriate.
I've gotten a lot of good feedback on the show that we did last year, filming the late season hunt, etc. But especially the number of birds that we saw. And we hunted both of your lands. Now, we'll talk more about that a little bit later, about that setup. But that's kind of where I'd like to jump off. First, how was your fall this year? Rob, I'll start with you.
Yeah, my fall this year was outstanding, and you'll be happy to know I didn't get stuck at all. But no, it was really good. Late season, October was a little challenging, if you recall. November was amazing, and we had some great December hunts. And for the first time for me, as you know, I went to school South Dakota State. I still have some friends over there, and they've developed some nice land and habitat. And I got to go in the middle of January hunt there, and probably saw no more than 400 or 500 birds in one afternoon.
Oh, my gosh.
It was wonderful. A little spooky.
Yeah, I bet.
But we did manage to get our birds and try to thin out the herd a little bit,
Good. And, Jeff, before I hop to you, I'll touch on what Rob mentioned. And this part barely made the show, but we ended up stuck in about 2 or 3 different snowbanks in one day. Oh my God, we spent probably 3 hours getting trucks unstuck instead of hunting, but it's all part of the adventure.
It's another
right?
good thing, though, to be buddies with the neighbor farmer guys, because they'll come pull you out.
That's right. And Jeff, how was your fall this year?
Well, it was probably the most different I've had in the 20 plus years we've been out there. We took on a new challenge of buying a homestead and putting up a new place out near one of the pieces of land that we already had owned. And so we've been out there doing a lot of planning and a lot of building and managing of the project. So the dog and the shotgun came out west with me every time, but I'm going to owe Faith some extra duty this fall because
you got a lot of afternoon hunts in.
We
no morning hunts.
Yeah, and as Rob said, the October party that rained on our parade with that big, heavy, wet snow, it really put a damper on the hunting conditions, week 2 or 3 into the fall. And thank God November came back, and a lot of the grasses did pop back. The blue stem, a lot of ours came back up, and a lot of the land kind of came back to be reasonably fruitful land. Tons of birds, probably one of the best years I've seen out there in many, many years with quantities.
And that's what we're hearing from, vast majority of the upland bird areas is just really good bird numbers. And that's what you guys experienced as well?
Yeah, I mean, I probably saw more birds than I can remember seeing. Some of the locals out there that track, how many birds their groups of guys shoot say that it was more birds this year than I believe it was 2007.
I think the best part was a couple comments on October when we hit that ice. If you had ground where you developed some nice bottoms with cattails and heavy cover, you were much better off. And some of my grass areas, it looked like, North Pole up there.
Correct.
And one of the things I guess I struggle with a little bit is between the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and Pheasants Forever and all these articles I read, Scott, about trees. And when you're out there in that ice storms and all that stuff, a lot of pheasants are in those trees and the pines and the conifers and the cedars and everything. And, it's rather interesting how one group doesn't like trees and the other does like trees,
And you're kind of getting into the meat of some of the things I wanted to ask you guys about. So I'll start here. When we filmed with you guys, we were coming off maybe what was called an average bird year across the Midwest. It was decent in some places, average in other places, but your bird numbers in the fall, that was December of 2019, were very good. That doesn't happen by accident, does it? So walk, maybe Rob, you want to, we hunted your land one day, Jeff's land 2 days.
Yeah.
We saw tons of birds both places. Why were we seeing the numbers like we did on your property?
Yeah, so it's a process, right? So you've got to be committed to it, and you got to develop habitat. And I tell people, when we go hunting, pheasants are just like humans. When it's a really nasty cold day, they're not going to be standing out in the middle of the field, right? They're going to be at the end of a nice, grove of trees or in a slough or something. But you have to have that habitat for them. And I think it's critical for you to work with experts. So I didn't know anything. I hunted all the time, like you guys did as kids and all over. But I just ripped on out there and hunted. And then I went to South Dakota college. I road hunted. I became pretty damn good at that, but without a dog. And but once you develop that habitat, it just gets better every year, Scott. And I would challenge everybody: work with the local teams, work with the local PF, work with the local farmer. Work with the local USDA office, and they'll build you plans. And the Pheasants Forever banquet that we went to down in St. Paul, or wherever that was that St. Paul a lot of years ago? I brought my maps out there, and I went over to, I think, one of the guys that does it for a living, and they mapped me out a whole plan, and I just worked off that plan. So I would say build a plan. It may be in phases, and you will see results.
And Jeff, did you kind of follow that MO2 with your property? Yeah, we worked very closely with our local branches out there. And to jump onto Rob's comments, number one is bird production is 100% about habitat, because if they can't make it through the winter, they can't nest and lay new eggs and new chicks. They have to have food, but they have to have cover. And if you're looking to get into buying some land, I echo Rob 100%, is get in with the local experts. They're dying to help you. Yeah. They love when they see us walk through the door and with a bunch of questions, how can you help me? and they jumped to the occasion. We've had nothing but positive results in Lincoln County and Lac-Del-Paro County.
It's okay to be naive.
Yeah. I mean, I would shout out to those people, if they're listening, that they've been a big part of our success, and there's no question in my mind. And it is a committed effort, because you don't just plant habitat and then you're done. It just, unfortunately, we wish it was that easy, but it's not.
Yeah. We learned a lot about mid-management contract burns and mows and things like that. But again, when we get those notifications, because again, we didn't know much, but we would just go say, what do you do about this? And they'd say, these are the 8 guys that'll come in and either mow for you or burn for you. And then you even donate money to the local fire department, and the fire department will come help you. But you got to start asking questions, and then they'll help you.
Now, you guys went about getting your land in a little bit different paths. And, so Jeff, I'll start with you on this question. You joined with several partners from our old high school, Eden Prairie, to purchase your first bit of land, I'll call it, and you expanded it from there. But walk us through how that part got started. How did you go from a group of buddies, hunting buddies, that probably went out, day hunted, weekend hunted, and to maybe hunting public land and whatnot, which I know you still do, but to then saying, hey, let's form a partnership and buy some land?
Well, we started over 20 years ago, our process, our journey. And 20 years ago, all of us were working and had reasonable jobs, but nobody was hitting home runs or anything like that. And so we had one of our partners, Bill Hogue, who was very interested in a major hunter and was familiar with the area out there, and tip my hat to Billy. He probably truly the one who got us started out there with a location. And we found a piece of land. And the other thing we were extremely fortunate with back then was land prices and the ability to acquire land. That was easier for any Tom, Dick, and Harry to pile in if they wanted to put some of their hard-earned savings to work.
We convinced our wives it was diversifying, remember?
Yeah. That was a sales pitch. But what we did is, we just put money in a pot and agreed we're going to do this. We've been lifelong. We were grade school buddies. I've been buddies with these guys since 3rd grade myself, and you as well. And so there was a lot of mutual camaraderie, mutual trust. When we grew up, we didn't worry about who paid more tonight for their portion of the tab or who paid less. I was fortunate with my group of guys. We grew up with a school of it'll all work itself out in the wash. And I think that overall attitude has been tremendously helpful in our survival of this partnership that we've had, because there's been, at every different time in this process, one of us have stepped up more than the other guy to make what our overall passion was happening.
Reality.
There were times that some of us couldn't afford to put in that much money, and they became a lesser partner in that piece of land, but they wanted to be a part of it, so they still contributed. And at that same time, there might have been one of us that had some extra money. Maybe they got a nice year-end bonus, and they decided, I'll pick up your end and I'll have a bigger share of it, But we had a plan, and we had a strategy, and we had an agreement, a legal corporation. I think those are critical. Don't do it just seat of the pants.
Is that agreement then kind of give? Well, first of all, how many guys were in the initial partnership with you?
The initial one was 4.
Okay.
And initially, day one, I was not in that because I was living in Kansas City at the time, and we moved shortly after that acquisition happened. And one of the partners, who was a very positive reason of why it happened, because he was a financial helper, he just felt like it wasn't what he thought it was cut out to be. And in his defense, he was one of the outsiders looking in. And so I kind of came in, I don't know, a year and a half into it or so, and that's kind of when I jumped in with the group, and it was an easy melding. everything's kind of gone, straight forward. We've had bumps and hurdles.
We'll talk about those a little later.
but truthfully, they've been just that, bumps, and that's what I think has been the most successful reason why we're still together today in a new partnership.
I would say, if I could add to this, the key is have, obviously a partnership, but you need to have some legal documents, because you don't know. I mean, think of what you were doing 10 years ago and what you're doing now. Everybody's life changes, and good fences make good neighbors too. And then in your documents, for those who are listening, think about that. You got to have buy-sell clauses. You got to have clauses like that, because some person may decide, guess what? I'm picking up and moving to Dallas, and I'm never going to be here hardly anymore, so I want to sell my shares. And you can buy it from your partners, things like that. But it's very important to have that. And
it gives you a foundation from which to, if there is a discrepancy on something, to go back to and look at too. And you brought it up, Rob, I think, is if someone's moving, God forbid, what if there was a death,
right.
And a spouse doesn't want to be a part of the partnership anymore. So that gives you the time and wherewithal to think of some of those things to build from too. Now, Rob, you have gone a solo track on your land, correct?
My first one was actually a partnership with my brother and a good friend of mine when we used to go hunt up at Traverse and that area all the time, where they always say, there's no pheasants up there, and I used to walk my butt off in public and come back with my limit, and people are like, where have you been at? And I said, you just got to put in the time, baby. And so we did that in a partnership, and I learned a little bit on that. But the way I started, and for those of you that are listening that want to acquire land, you've got to, again, it's a process, but you've got to be committed to it, because you'll find properties for sale that aren't necessarily in an auction, but you may find good properties in auction. You'll find it. My first piece of property I found for sale in our local paper, our Sunday sports section. 94 acres, sold by a private party. I literally got in the car the next morning and drove out there and bought it. I met the guy who bought it. And the other thing I would tell you is, usually if somebody sells land, they have more land. So kind of a smart move and a lesson learned here is, when you're buying somebody's land, ask for the first right of refusal on their other land, and also ask for hunting rights. So the worst thing they can say is no. And usually they're going to say, yeah, that's fine. And so all of a sudden you have access to other land. So I bought that, and then I got the first right of refusal on another piece of ground that happened to have a gravel pit on it. What the hell I know about gravel? Nothing, except pheasants like to come eat it sometimes. But so then I bought that. And the other thing I would tell you that I did, and I got this from my friend who did this, is I would put enough money down that it cash flowed, so in case something happened to me, and then I would then use that equity. As Jeff said earlier, the price back then was low, but I'm still telling you, there's great deals out there on non-100% tillable land. And the way our government and our state has done programs, you can then put those in programs, and you'll be able to cash flow that land.
And that's true with many states, not just Minnesota as well, right?
Yeah, Minnesota's got a few other programs, though, that I think really get us accelerated in those areas. But you do that, and then you use that equity, and you go to the next one. And I learned along the way, and then over the years, I've developed some of the land, and then I even, with this passion, I want this land to stay, open to public or hunting forever. So I sold 2 parcels. I think I told you last fall. I sold 2 parcels to Pheasants Forever.
Yeah.
And then they worked the program with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and USDA, and now it's open to public.
And I hunted one of those this fall. Yeah. I hunted it.
You had your daughters out there hunting, I think, right?
I did. We did not get a rooster, but we put up about 24 hens, so it was great. Wait, Let me ask you something, Robbie. You brought this up. Cash flowing. What does that look like? When you talked about that the piece of land that had the gravel pit on it, and how did you make that cash flow, for if you were to describe that to someone listening to this podcast?
Yeah, so again, you got to look at the programs available. And this is one of the pieces of ground that, as you know, I like the most, because it was a bunch of bad CRP bad grass and a gravel pit. And I went into the local office and I said, what can I do with this? And
local PF office?
No, local FSA office in
Okay.
USDA. And I said, can somebody help me here? And so I put out the map and I said, I heard about these programs like Reinvest in Minnesota and WRP programs. And they said, well, neither one of those programs are going to help you cash flow this thing. And I said, oh, okay, what a bummer. And then they came back to me 6 months later and said, Rob, we can put them together. I said, oh, now I'm interested. So we literally took 75 acres out of production that were just CRP, and we broke the tile up and did a bunch of work, and they helped me find the farmers to do it and all the local guys to do it. And I built 2-3 big sloughs that now hold birds in the wintertime. And for those who are listening, I got paid more for that than I did my CRP. Huh. So I got a promotion to build up habitat.
And I really jump in here because, trust me, if you're listening to this, neither of these guys are rocket scientists. So they are going.
Is that how we're
going to
go?
Okay. Going to.
It's lucky this is an afternoon session.
Let me get my gloves off.
Different. Yeah, right.
Let me get my gloves off.
Like they were drinking coffee.
So you're working with the local. So how did you find these people to help you when you found this bit of land? And to help you plan it out and get this.
Yeah, so almost all
Who directed you there? Did you just figure that out on your own?
Well, I learned through actually PF.
Okay.
Yeah.
So PF has been, for both of you, has been good partners in working with you on land that you have in both with the organization and then directing you to resources to help you cash flow it or develop it or what have you.
The knowledge and the awareness. So I just, in the PF, if you look at the second or third page on they'll say who that local area person is, and they have their email and their number. You just call them, and that's how I started. Like, where do I go? What do I do? And they're so busy. And then there's 4 fee guys out there too that do this stuff, but they are instrumental. And,
Rob. I give him a lot of credit because we were out of the gate. I don't know. 7-8 years ahead of you, probably.
Yeah, 2004, I think I bought that first piece of ground.
But what Rob did is he talked about research and commitment to digging and turning over rocks. He did a great job because he was always calling me saying, okay, so tell me why you did that way and how'd you do this way? How'd you find that? And of course we gave him our tips, but to his credit, he really went out with shoes on the pavement. And I said it earlier, I'm telling you, these local offices are dying to help you. So if you go in there and open the door and establish a face and a name and a relationship, you won't even believe how much they'll help you because they give you a farmer that could pull the tile out. They give you a farmer that could mow your burn breaks for you. And then once you meet these people, of course, they're locals and they appreciate what you're doing. And like any farmer, they want to help. That's how they're born and raised is you help your neighbors, and so
I think there's, you got to establish a relationship at whatever level you're comfortable. But we have the farmers now. They come over to our shack at night. And we cook a big meal and have a beverage or two and talk. And some of them, I don't deer hunt. And so I let them, kind of reciprocate, hey, you can go deer hunt my ground this week if you want. And then they'll say, well, hey, next week, nobody's been through that ground over there to go rooster hunt if you want. And then it's like, really? And you go through like, unbelievable.
And we did that this fall. That was pretty
wild. Sure did.
So here's the other part of the question. So now you've given a few tips on how you started. And one tip was obviously kind of home in on an area that you want to be in. And then what may be for sale there, local offices you can tap into. But now we'll fast forward, you own your land. How much time do you spend managing the land in a year, let's say? So you've mentioned burns, you've mentioned plantings and things like that. So and again, Rob, it's you working that angle, and then
Right.
Jeff, you have partners. So if, that's the
Yeah,
other thing.
let me start out on this one, because what I first did is I had a ton of tillable land that I was cash renting. And I bought, and again, when you're looking to buy or partner, look at every website of these local guys that are selling different things. There's a wonderful company called Northwest Farm Management. It's got a great website, and they do this and that. But they also do farm management, because I'm a busy damn guy, and I'm raising kids and all that. I'm like, how am I going to do this? And they have a service there for you. Obviously, you pay them a fee. And so I did that for quite a few years, Franny. And then what I did is I learned from them. And then my workaday world slowed down a little bit. So I said, I can take one on. So I took one on, and then I took another one on, and then I phased them out. But it does take time.
How much time? I mean, how much time do you think on average a year you are working on your land?
Well, I would say now, because I'm more skilled at it, I spend less than, there's a paperwork aspect. The admin aspect is probably, 20 hours a year maybe.
Yeah.
And then if you're doing no new programs, you got a lot more in there. You got to figure out which offering and which seeds to plant and stuff like that. But if you just, my recommendation to anybody is, if you can get a mixed use land that has some cash rent in there, some tillable, that's a great way to start, because right away you're forced to have a relationship with your farmer that's renting.
I agree.
It. And then I would use the farmers to now I got to do this mow, I guess. I don't know. Why do I want to mow my ground where all my pheasants are? And here's where or a burn. Then they help you. And then that ground we hunted 2 years ago, I had that farmer help me plant those 3,000 trees. And so there's income there, but it's not nearly as much as you think. Not nearly.
Would you concur with that, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, I think, let's just say you go and buy one piece of land. Well, you've got mid-contract burns that are, every 5 years, I think they
if
are.
It's a 10-year contract.
So if you do your burn, which is a large project, if you take it on yourself, it's a reasonable project just to manage it if you hire it out. But once you get through that project that year, well, check the box. You're not burning, you're not mowing for management reasons, by the way, which are there for a reason. And anyone that doesn't believe in the power of burning is sadly mistaken. And it is a major success to the longevity and livelihood of any piece of land that you own.
But the key to that is that's just mid-contract. So if you got a 10-year contract, so they have CRP contracts are 10 and 15, I think, still, and different things. So there'll be 2-3 years you don't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
You just get your check, and it's important to. But also, and I know we'll get to this, and Jeff has more experience in this than I do, but the food plots.
Yep.
I wanted to plant a food plot. And what do I know about planting a food plot, right? And so I talked to my farmer, who was farming my ground, and you start out with, hey, can you just leave 8-10 rows of corn? And I'll give you some money for that. And they're like, sure, and if you let them deer hunt, they're like, don't worry about it, I'll do that. And then you go to the FSA and USDA office, and you have to map out where you want your food plot in your CRP, but they'll let you do it in your CRP. So don't think just because it's in CRP, you can't do something with that.
But what I was going to add to that, and tell me if I'm accurate, is having hunting land, whether you have a structure on it or not, you have to have a certain fondness or to managing it, or working the land a little bit. I mean, it'd be akin maybe if you had a summer cabin or a cottage, you generally go up there and do a little work and recreate too. So in a partnership, Jeff, does everyone in your group have that same affinity, or are there those with more and then they balance that with something else that they're not as fond of?
Yeah, the latter.
Okay.
And our group, we had 4 primary partners, but there's really been 6 guys involved in different levels, and each are committed and avid hunters, believe in habitat and all that stuff. But there is, and I'm sure my partners are laughing out loud at those who know who they are and who they aren't. But it's work. But to me, it's work that is for the long-term gain of everything and maintenance of everything. And so, yeah, we've had a few sessions about, get off your ASS and get out here and help. It's your turn. But again, I'd say one of the successes of our partnership is those guys that haven't participated in these arenas as much have taken note of that and tried to pay dividends and participate in arenas that aren't related directly to maintaining
the land.
Yeah.
And that's, I would guess, a formula for a successful partnership.
Yes.
Because a partnership is very much like a marriage, and you've got 6 wives partners you're dealing with there. So how? Okay, let me ask you this.
Hey, it's not like I don't get along with people, Franny, over here.
So how has that partnership evolved just on its own, or to where you are now, and you guys are kind of in a groove as to someone might be more involved with the land management, someone might be more involved with a structure maintenance and things like that. Was that hard to come by? How rocky a road was it, or was it pretty smooth?
I think for us it was pretty smooth. I'm kind of a believer. It's like take a football team. There's only one quarterback, but we sure as heck need a center. We need a left guard, a tight end, and we need a good running back. On offense. And so we all have our roles, and they're not spoken. They're not written down. It's just unspoken stuff through, years and years of friendship. We have a guy that Bergie makes breakfast, and it's just a given he's making breakfast. Nobody gets out of bed. Nobody does anything until we hear him rattling pots and pans. There's just one dumb example. Others they like to bring dinner out because they're not as much of a participator maybe in the field maintenance type stuff. So yeah, finding the right partners, that's a big challenge. We were fortunate. We didn't have to find any. It was easy to just happen.
Don't start with strangers, that's for sure.
Yeah, I would echo that comment. And I think you want to start with people that are truly committed to the process of land ownership and habitat maintenance, because we all believed in it. We're all hunters. Every one of us hunted our whole lives. We tried our best to get our kids into hunting. Some have been successful at that, some haven't. But it's been, it's a never-ending process. And as easy it is for us guys to get along, I'm not gonna lie to you. We've had our battles, sitting maybe at the bar over a couple of belts, but the beauty of our partnership is we all speak our mind, and we do it frequently. We're not bashful, but once we do, it's kind of behind us, and our point's been made, and everybody kind of regroups on kind of what's been talked about at that point in time.
Well, and I think that probably goes to what Rob is saying. If you're going to look to form a partnership for land, you have to have that level of comfort with the people you're partnering with, that knowing that you're going to have some disagreements.
100%.
But you can discuss those, maybe loudly at some point, but go get through it and move beyond.
So I mentioned before about putting money down, Scott, so if you have a partnership, okay, 2 or 3 guys and other people and even women in it, that are hunters, which I love to see out in the field. I have 2 daughters, you have 3, right? And but it again, as a business person, if you put enough down to cash flow, then you're not going back to the well to do that. You've got to go back to the well to do projects, things like that. So it may be really hard for some people to do that, but I'd really challenge you to try it that way, because then you're not having to, hey, you owe another X, another X. So now it's just when you get your CRP and your cash rent payments, and you have to figure out how to pay taxes, things like that. But that's a specific thing on that. And I would also say that once you have a location, you take so much pride in it. So back to when you go out. So I go out a lot in the spring and see how things are looking, and we do some cleanup work. Sometimes we take some trees down that fell down or whatever, and you go out there. But you have the passion about it. Then you just bring your fishing rod and your golf clubs too, right? And then you go and you watch it, but you get local there too. And I think it's important for landowners to make sure they take an interest in the neighbors.
Yeah.
Really do. And we donate to the local chapter out there, and we're just getting to learn them more. And we got invited to actually, release some pheasants on some public ground. And it was fun. So if we're there's one thing I'd like to share, though, kind of a little humor here. So I went to school at South Dakota State, and I got a bunch of buddies, got land.
This
over
is now
there.
the fourth time you've mentioned that.
Yeah,
Rob.
I know.
Is this
Go
a promotion
Jackrabbits. But so check it out, Gusty. And but we would never hunt Minnesota, right? And I know this is all over the Midwest kind of show, but we would drive right by all Minnesota. We go to South Dakota all the time, right? And once I started grabbing some land, and Jeff did too, and putting habitat up, one of my best friends said, the day I get a Minnesota license is the day I slice my wrist, So I bring him out to my place, and he didn't even walk 200 yards, and he shot his birds. So now I have South Dakota guys coming to Minnesota to get licensed. Think of that. If you don't think that's a definition of success.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, let me stop down here. We're going to take a quick break, and then I've got some more questions on land ownership for you guys. But I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the OnX Hunt app. It's one of the most helpful tools available for hunters today. OnX maps give you peace of mind while you're in the field, especially so you don't go on Rob and Jeff's property, because they show you exact location where you are in the property. The app clearly displays property boundaries for both public and private lands, and it identifies who owns the land. It highlights public lands and provides landowner names on private ground. The map gives you an aerial view of the lands so you can zoom in on a property, come up with your own game plan before you ever hit the field. And I've done that a lot, especially when I'm hunting public lands and want to make sure I stay on my public land. TechSet OnX continue to add features to this app to help hunters like you and I when we're in the field. Features like wind and weather forecasts for specific properties you plan to hunt. They also offer a feature that lets you download the map and use it offline without cell phone coverage. You can track your routes in the field, drop GPS pins on the property, etc. Plus, you can add notes to each route and pin that information with other OnX users. OnX maps are becoming living journals that hunters can use for years to come. If you haven't tried the OnX Hunt app, we highly recommend it, that you download it before your next outdoor adventure. They give you a free trial, so you'll be able to test it out while on the road. Head to the App Store on your mobile device and search OnX. On OnX, you know where you stand. Okay, there's a question that I keep coming back to, and you've kind of talked a little bit about this, but I want to see if we can give some tips to people that may be interested in securing their own hunting land. You talk about financing, and when whether the first properties maybe you bought or something different. And I think I'll start with you this time, Rob. I think you've worked with some local bankers and people in some of the areas where you own your land. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I started out with my local bank, and then
And how eager were they to work with you when you
They're
said, "Hey, I want to buy some land that I want to hunt"?
Yeah,
and
and
do
then they
something.
like, guess what? We have an egg banker for you. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll go to an egg banker, and it was one of the larger banks, a brand that you would know. And then I got to know that banker, and then when I bought another piece of ground, say out in western Minnesota, I'd talk to some of the local bankers, and they were very willing, and it was very smooth, very easy actually to go about it. Again, the process, today some banks require 50% down on ag land. Others will require less than that. So you need to shop around. But recently, and I'm not here to put a plug in for anybody, but recently, the Farm Credit Service or something like that, they've become very aggressive in helping hunters that own land.
So the tip may be check with your local bank provider, but shop it a little bit.
Shop a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think if there's, maybe a challenge to PF, I'm sure they've got something written somewhere, but that'd be a good session to have. I used to go to the PF sessions when they have their annual banquet. They'd have a, how to finance your land session. And they'd have these booths set up, and we'd go talk to them. And that's where we learned about the pollinator too, remember?
Yeah.
So if you put pollinator in, you get another like $40 an acre for your CRP payments and different things. So it goes back to just ask a lot of questions, but there's programs out there.
And to be a student, it sounds like, right, Jeff? To be a student of what is available to a landowner.
One thing I would add to Rob's, is if you're going to jump into this, you have to have a strategy. And my opinion and strong belief, is sticking with it. And, our strategy day one was 20% down. And then typically...
For each partner? Or for the
20%
land?
of the total land cost down.
Okay.
Divided by two partners, four partners. And then typically back then, now granted this is year 2000 and land prices were grossly different, but you typically with your CRP funding could cash flow it, and so when we bought a piece, first piece 20% down, second piece 20% down, we bought probably our fourth piece, and we weren't going to put 20% down. And at that point in time, I held my ground with the partners and said, I'm out then. I don't want to leave our strategy. It's a proven strategy. It's never not worked. I'm out. And long story short, I came back in as a minority owner in that piece. And ironically, we've sold that piece. It was our worst piece from a financial point of view. It might have been one of our best pieces from a hunting point of view. So it was really hard to see it walk away when it finally did sell. But develop a strategy. We opted local. All of our bankers are local. You need a lawyer. Get a local lawyer. Our lawyer out there is local. Once they get to know you, and if you're a reasonably nice guy.
Well, that must have been tough for you.
Correct. I had to tiptoe around that. Again, these people will, once they know, hey, you walk in the door, hi, Rob. Hi, Jeff. Yeah. What are you here for today? What do you need? And that's just how these people are out there. And
the one thing, I think his point, so again, think of financing, right? So the banks are going to look at how does that land produce cash. So you're seeing a lot more programs that are complete set-aside, Scott. So somebody sold their entire piece of ground to a program that no longer generates cash. Okay, so they took a big hunk of money, kind of like when I talked about my WRP and RIM program, Reinvest in Minnesota and WRP. That's not producing cash now. Okay, CRP produces cash annually. So when you're going to finance that, the guy's like, hey, you just bought hunting land. That's it. And say it's, but that also, as you look at this, that price is at a different per acre, right? I mean, good tillable ag land can go $11,000 an acre down in Southwest Minnesota. Perfect set-aside land goes for what, $1,500 maybe?
That'd be a high number, I'd say.
Yeah.
And it's you said something, Jeff, that I think is kind of interesting, and how you look at it, and Rob, I think you do too, is you have both had kind of your I'll call it your homestead land, where you kind of had your main camp, but then you've had different parcels that have come and gone from that, and it sounds like you can't get too married to it if it's really just good for hunting, or if it's just really good for business, it doesn't balance out. You're looking for a little of both.
Yeah, I mean, remember one of the key things that says form a corporation?
Yeah.
Well, it's a corporation. It's a business. and you can't lose sight of the business side of it.
Is that hard though?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we're doing all this so we can go hunt roosters, but it's also, truthfully, a part of our retirement plan too. A significant part of my retirement plan is out in the lands that I own. What are we going to do with those? I don't know, someday. But yeah, I mean, it's a constant battle, and you always have to run things. We run it like a business. I was a stickler. Did a lot of our book work, and I never wrote a check without an invoice. I never, and if somebody didn't pay their share of the property taxes for spring, I hounded them until they did. But I mean, it's a business, and so you have to run it that way. And if you don't have the money, you can't spend it. It's pretty simple stuff. But Rob said it.
Yeah, I was going to ask Rob. So do you, with the property you own, you kind of look at it that way, or will you, if a piece of land is just lights out for hunting and it, the financial parts of that land may not be as good, will you?
Well, you know the answer to one of them. There's no way I'm selling that one piece of ground by that other piece of ground. I can hit a golf ball, but that won't ever be sold. But no, it was hard when I sold that big piece of ground to PF because it was wicked good. I could duck hunt it in the morning, have a coffee, wait around, go shoot my roosters, be on the road by noon.
Well, you had done all that work too to get it to that point.
I know. I'd done a ton of work. I planted a living snow fence a mile long and a half-mile wide. But to be honest with you, another investment opportunity came up, and I needed some cash. And it wasn't for land; it was for a business. And I guess for the listeners here, it doesn't need to be permanent. So if you have something else that comes up, maybe you got a house next door you want to buy, or a cabin. This is a very marketable.
That's what
investment.
I was going to say. So you can, whether it's with a group of partners or on your own, you may get into a piece of property, let's say, and something changes in your life 8 years after you buy it. You should be able to get out of that piece of land at least what you put into it, if not more. So would you say?
If you buy a cash paying piece of land, I would say you will always get out from underneath it. When you look into buying a rim or a crep piece of land that you've made your money on the land when it was retired, but if you buy a piece that's already retired in that, you're going to pay a substantially lower per acre rate because it's untillable forever. But that land has done nothing but go down in the last 5 to 8 years per acre. Go find an acre of land that has gone down in the last 5 or 10 years that has the ability to till.
Right. So I would say this though, Scott, not to discourage the listeners for buying crep or set land, because that's the cheapest. And if you can get like even a group of guys or gals to do it, that's a great way to start.
It is.
Then you're just paying taxes. You're not getting any income. But who wouldn't pay, hey, if we throw in, X amount of money to buy that piece of land we like so ever, let's start there. But then if you want to, again, a strategy or a phase process, build that out because you have an asset. Treat it like an asset and use that asset to go buy some more assets and keep doing that. And it's a program that works.
And to Rob's point, I mean, I hope I didn't discourage people from, entering into the land purchasing program by, check the box, can't ever buy a piece of crep land, because I echo Rob's comments completely. It's simple math. Crep, we have a piece of crep land, and attached to it is a piece of tillable CRP land. And, we're paying tax rate. We're paying that piece of land today is worth like $350,000, and it's 380 acres, and the 80 acre piece next to it's worth the same price or a little more. So what what are the property taxes per acre on my 80 versus the 380? So you could buy 80 acres with the same property tax dollars annually, or you could have 380 acres. So back to it might be a great way to enter. I mean, it's a good strategy because it's not easy to get in to the program and the way we've done things and with today's land dollars, land values.
The other thing I think we'd be remiss if we didn't address this, Scott, is don't just think cash rent is the route for financial success. So these programs that the government has right now, whether CRP and others, you get like, I had a piece of ground, I had 70 acres, and I was getting $100 an acre for cash rent. I went in and put trees in there. We put a bunch of new blue stem and pollinator grasses and things like that in there. You get a one-time signing program, so they call it a SIP, right? Something like that, sign of incentive program. You get a one-time payment for those things, and that totaled, I'll just use the numbers, it totaled about $18,000 I got for that. Then, after the programs are in, I got $150 an acre for CRP. So I got a promotion to build habitat.
Wow. Which is great. Which is great. And I know there's so much we could cover off on this topic. But I guess I want to add, I'll kind of close with this question for both of you, and you can choose who wants to go first. If you were to give me 2 or 3 tips for somebody, either Rob, let's start with you, for an individual who might be, teetering on, gosh, I really think I want to do something like this. What would the tips be?
First of all, find the area you want to go and study the area. And you'll learn and you'll be able to find, and you got to drive these areas. So, because there'll be stuff that'll come for sale. Like my first piece of ground was 94 acres for sale by owner. Then you find the auction houses. Then you find the other areas. So you do that. Secondly, don't be the only guy with habitat. Don't be the only guy with habitat. So make sure you drive around and see where all the good habitat is, and then say, and it's okay to be next to public, by the way. And it's also really good. We haven't talked about WIA walking areas, but those are popping up everywhere. And so you got to do that. And then, and don't, you must have passion about it, So find the area you want, and don't be the only guy with habitat, and make sure you have passion, and you'll find something, and you'll love it. You'll just love it.
Jeff, how about you? I'm a guy, I've got 3-4 other buddies. We've talked about this. We think we're ready to pull the pin. What's your top 3 pieces of advice?
I think knowing the area, and Rob's comment, the other one that was knowing that there's other habitat around you is really, really important. But, when you're looking at jumping into something with partners, you just got to be able to look at each other and say, guys, are we all in? And passion, he used the words, commitment, because it never ends. You don't buy it and just go, sweet, now I got a place to go hunt. You got to go out and put posted signs on it. Yep. You got to maintain your posted signs on it. So it's something you got to really down deep say, I really want to do this, and I'm willing to take on this responsibility. It takes time away from your family, your wife, your kids. It will also let you enjoy time with your family and your wife and your kids. So it's a two-way street. I know my family sure enjoyed our years growing up with kids out at the farm. We went out every MEA every year, and the kids, they wouldn't look to go anywhere else. And what do you mean? It's MEA. We're going out to the farm, which is what we called our hunting place out there. And so, make sure the groups it's going to be tricky. You're going to have ebbs and flows. So make sure it's kind of like trying to pick that right gal to get married to. I mean, you got to think, hey, I'm ready to do this for the long haul. And if you go into it that way, I think you're going to find the right people and have a good run.
And what it really sounds like for both of you, is a place to create memories with your buddies, memories with your family, your kids, in a variety of different ways, like many recreational properties. And it's a good way to create memories on the hunting side, so that our next generation can see that there is work to be put into the land. It just doesn't happen. That critters, all kinds of critters, need habitat, and they can enjoy that. And it's not just about, for them, potentially shooting a rooster. It's the whole experience.
Well, the other part that is, and you know this very well, when you're walking your ground, it's a very special feeling. And when you invite some friends out, first of all, it's not, you can take anybody golfing. You can take anybody fishing or boating. But you only invite a certain set of friends with you on your ground to share that experience. Plus, they have a firearm. But, but you really do. I mean, you'll get people that say casually, like, geez, I wish I'd get an invite to your ground. Yeah, well, keep wishing. But because it is a special place.
Well, guys, thanks for coming on today. And if you have not seen The Boys from Eden Prairie, it will be up on our YouTube channel in 2 weeks. I believe March 2nd is when it gets posted. You can see some of the ground that we're talking about that Jeff and Rob have put a lot of heart and soul into preparing, and the birds that come off of it. And once again, I want to thank OnX for helping us make today's show possible. Be sure to download the OnX Hunt app before your next hunting adventure to find out why it's one of the most valuable hunting tools available today. New episodes of the Flush Television Show are being uploaded each week to our YouTube channel. Simply search the Flush TV on your YouTube and subscribe to our channel. You can stream each episode in its entirety from home, at work, that's where I watch it, or from your favorite bird hunting destination. And you can watch Jeff, Rob, and the rest of the Boys from Eden Prairie on the YouTube channel in 2 weeks. Also, don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, as we share good content that should resonate with our hunting fraternity. And please check it out, as we will be sharing and releasing some cool Flush merchandise coming up. More to come on that. Thank you for joining us. Brandon, did I keep it on the rails?
Nailed it.
All right. So Travis is out. Scott in. Note to self. Actually, no. Travis will be back next week with another episode of the Flush Podcast. Stay warm. Stay well. Give your dog a pat on the head and an ear rub for me. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, this is Michael Russo from over at the Worst Seats in the House podcast.
About a month ago, Brian came to my house from Aquarius Home Services and did a free water analysis on my city water, and it was absolutely disgusting. He did this Lipton tea test where he took purified water and then he took my city water. He made tea in my microwave, minute apart. One came out pitch black and smelled disgusting. The other one came out, well, smelling and looking like tea. And it just was absolutely awesome, and that's what sold me. I got a Kinetico revolutionary non-electric water treatment system. So go to AquariusHomeservices.com or call 1-888-741-9025. Again, Aquarius Home Services. They're your local authorized dealer for Kinetico water treatment systems.